As of the end of 2021, I have ridden 1,157 different roller coasters. 994 are made of steel. 163 were made of wood. In 2021, I visited 25 new theme parks across the globe and rode 124 new roller coasters. 11 of those coasters cracked my top 100. In this video, I will rank my top 100 favorite roller coasters in the entire world. This list will combine both wood and steel coasters into one list. I place rides assuming I'm in my favorite seat in the ride, and I also go by how the coaster is running for my most recent rides. I tend to prioritize rides with great airtime, strong pacing, and a beautiful setting. This list is my personal opinion. I don't expect anyone to have the same list as me. When comparing two rides, it comes down to which one is more fun for me. Number 100, Diamondback at Kings Island. This Balzer Mabyard hypercoaster has an amazing setting as it goes deep into the woods. Diamondback's first half is some of the best sustained floater airtime you can experience on any coaster. The first drop and subsequent two camelbacks always keep me out of my seat for several seconds. The first few valleys can rattle, but it wasn't as shaky in 2021 as past years. The airtime in the second half may not be quite as strong as the first half because you lose some speed from the trims, but you'll still get decent floater airtime, and that final splash is an exciting visual. Number 99, Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point. The original full-circuit hypercoaster is much cruder than newer hypercoasters, but that's part of Magnum's charm. This Aero hypercoaster offers beautiful views and sustained floater airtime in the first half. The triangular-shaped bunny hills in the return run offer some of the most violent airtime in the world. Magnum tries to destroy your thighs. This coaster is a bit jerky, and the airtime is so strong it can sometimes be uncomfortable, but I love this ride's raw power. Number 98, Space Mountain at Disneyland. This indoor coaster is a delight. The onboard audio on the California version is amazing. Michael Giacchino's score really augments the sense of speed, along with the fans and starry sky. This one has barely any drops, but the turns are exceptional. If you have a heavy train, you careen through the second half at a really scary rate, and the resultant laterals are shockingly strong. Number 97, Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This B&M invert has a powerful first half. The gigantic first drop builds up a ton of speed, and then the first four inversions have some very sustained positive Gs. The Immelman causes me to gray out. The vertical loop tries to rip my legs off. And then the Cobra Roll has some insanely wild snaps into and out of the element. Alpengeist's second half is slowed down significantly by the mid-course, but the 0G roll still has some float, and the corkscrew is a little bit of whip. Number 96, Renegade at Valleyfair. This is one of GCI's best coasters. I love how this wood coaster incorporates several sustained floater hills into the layout, while also having the trademark quick pops of airtime that GCI is known for. Renegade holds its speed well through the layout, and as of when I rode it in 2019, it was still tracking smoothly. Number 95, Tremors at Silverwood. This Custom Coasters International creation has a really cool layout. The abundance of tunnels makes this an underrated night ride. This coaster also has a nice mix of forces. The bunny hills through the tunnels offer some great sustained floater airtime, and then the large drops also give some good airtime in the back. Then the main turnaround has some insane sustained laterals. There is a bit of a lull in the middle of the layout, but Tremors starts and finishes strong. Number 94, Rampage at Alabama Splash Adventure. This CCI wood coaster was underwhelming up front, but my back row ride was everything I could want. The first drop, second hill, and final two drops offer great ejector airtime in the back. You don't get that level of airtime elsewhere. The ride also has some sustained floater on the two giant camelbacks, and the minimal banking on the turnarounds also mixes in some nice laterals. The ride is also well taken care of and runs quite smoothly. Number 93, Mindblower at Funspot Kissimmee. This is an aggressive little ride. This Gravity Group wood coaster has a strong start with an ejector airtime filled drop and a barrel roll with some great hang time. The rest of the coaster is filled with a flurry of bunny hills that will pop you out of your seat. This coaster has relentless pacing, but it is rather shaky. I talk about it more in a separate review, but this coaster would probably be 25 to 30 spots higher if it ran smoother. Number 92, Goliath at Six Flags Great America. This Rocky Mountain Construction topper track wood coaster may have a shortage of elements, but it certainly packs a punch. The massive first drop offers some incredible ejector airtime, the camelback launches you out of your seat, the dive loop has some crazy head choppers, and the zero-G stall blissfully levitates you out of your seat. The ride has nice snaps into and out of the elements. I just wish it had some extra bunny hills mixed in. Number 91, Max Force at Six Flags Great America. America's fastest accelerating coaster is an adrenaline rush. The compressed air launch is one of the best in the world. You instantaneously teleport down the launch track. The launch is quick and violent. The rest of the layout, while short, has a fun mix of elements. The dog tongue at the start and the dive loop at the end both offer good hang time. Then the high-speed barrel roll in the middle offers some wild laterals. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is a short but oh so sweet launch coaster. Number 90, Surf Coaster Leviathan at Sea Paradise. This Togo creation blew me away in 2018. I went in expecting a tame jet coaster. The ride had a scenic location above the water, but the ride has some serious power to it. Every drop offered airtime, and then the coaster also mixed in some surprise laterals and forceful helixes. The ride was also quite long and shockingly smooth for a Togo. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this may be the most underrated coaster I've ever ridden. Number 89, Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom. The best coaster at Walt Disney World is a true classic. The dark space environment transforms this coaster with modest stats into a bona fide thrill ride. The four main drops all give good airtime in the back car, and the tight helixes towards the end are moderately forceful. The coaster is a bit jerky, but the super padded trains feel like couches, so they absorb the blows. I go into more detail in a separate review, but I think this coaster is underrated by enthusiasts. Number 88, Afterburn at Carowinds. This B&M invert is a mini Montu. The ride is very smooth, and the inversions are all great. The Batwing in particular stands out for its powerful positive Gs and strong whip, but the other four also shine. The vertical loop has good force to it, the Immelman has some snap, the zero-G roll is abrupt, and the final corkscrew really whisks you through it. Number 87, Dragon Challenge Chinese Horntail at Islands of Adventure. This B&M invert was super unique. Not only did it interact with the opposing blue track in its early years, but it had a bizarre layout. The two Immelmans were super forceful, and the remaining three inversions were snappy. Then I also loved the giant camelback early in the ride that offered some rare sustained airtime you rarely get on an invert. Number 86, Dragon Challenge Hungarian Horntail at Islands of Adventure. Most people preferred the red side, but I actually preferred the blue side. While this one did have a weaker finale, I preferred the inversions on this side. The zero-G roll was fast and furious, and the Cobra roll had some real snap to it. Then you had the same great near misses as the red side when it ran as dueling dragons. Both sides of this legendary coaster are sorely missed. Number 85, Cannibal at Lagoon. I cannot believe this coaster was built in-house. Cannibal feels like a supersized Gerstlauer Eurofighter. It has one of the world's best drops. I cannot believe how large this beyond vertical drop is. It starts with strong ejector before transitioning to floater. The rest of the ride is pretty strong too. The first two inversions are decent. The Immelman has some weak hang time, and the dive loop is whippy. Then the Lagoon roll is spectacular, and it offers some of the best hang time on any coaster. While this coaster may only have two standout elements in my opinion, it's pure fun and glass smooth. Number 84, Monster at Adventureland. This Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster is a ton of fun. The first drop offers some great ejector airtime, The dive drop has some floater airtime and strong laterals. The finish loop has some incredible hang time. The camelback has some weak airtime. The dive loop is whippy. And then the finale is enhanced, yes enhanced, by a trim brake. This trim slows you down and causes some crazy lateral hang time on the final turn and traditional hang time on the final corkscrew. This ride's varied layout is why I like it so much. Number 83, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. This mock multi-launch coaster has pitiful launches, but everything else about the ride is great. The JoJo roll, 2 vertical loops, and cutback all offer some of the best hang time on any coaster. It is surprising how long you're suspended upside down. Then the coaster also has some great airtime. The hill after the first loop, the Stengel dive through the first loop, and the final bunny hill all aggressively launch you from your seat, and then the ride also has some smaller airtime moments peppered throughout its twisted layout. Number 82, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. The original RMC hybrid conversion is one of the best prototypes ever. RMC placed their iBox track on an aging wooden roller coaster, and they transformed it into a smooth airtime machine. The first half has some strong ejector airtime on that steep first drop and on the lower speed hills. And then there are some wild overbanks too with some nice laterals. The second half doesn't have the traditional power of RMC's later coasters, but most hills will still pop you out of your seat, and this is one of the company's longest coasters. This coaster paved the way for RMC's later coasters, and it's still a respectable ride on its own for the reasons I talk about in a separate review. Number 81, Flying Aces at Ferrari World. This Intamin hypercoaster is often called Skyrush's sister, since it has many of the same traits. But Flying Aces is a much different ride. While Skyrush tries to eject you with some of the strongest ejector airtime in the world, Flying Aces tries to laterally eject you. This coaster has some of the strongest laterals on any ride. The lateral snaps from the non-inverting loop and S-bends will fold your body over. The ride does have a few airtime moments though, such as the ejector airtime filled first drop and the fast speed hill, but the laterals are what shines most for the reasons I talk about in a separate review. Number 80, Goliath at La Ronde. This B&M Mega Coaster is a floater airtime machine. While it's one of their smaller mega coasters, this B&M creation has a simple layout consisting of one camelback after another. There isn't even a fancy turnaround, and that's fine by me. Every hill has solid sustained floater airtime and it's glass smooth. Number 79, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. Canada's other B&M hypercoaster has more power to it. The larger drops hold the floater airtime longer, and the larger trains will pull you over the drops more forcefully. This one does have a slight rattle to it, but the airtime is so strong that I can look past it. Number 78, Taron at Phantasialand. This well-themed Intamin launch coaster is stunningly beautiful. Seeing Taron's convoluted layout weave its way through Klugheim is magical. It results in some fantastic near misses, and it makes the layout impossible to memorize. The LSM launches have some good power to them, and both the first half and second half start strong. Each one has a great sense of speed, while also mixing in some great airtime and laterals, sometimes simultaneously. I think both halves do fizzle out towards the end, but I love when a thrill coaster is themed like this, and I go into more detail in a separate review. Number 77, Wild Train at Fantasiana. This PAX creation looks like a family coaster. It's only 59 feet or 18 meters tall, yet it has stronger airtime than a lot of RMCs. Every single element is profiled super sharply, and it looks like a mistake from Planet Coaster. The drops are super steep, and they try to launch you into orbit. And the coaster are also some frightening head choppers. I did not dare raise my hands on this one. This coaster is smooth despite its janky appearance, and I love its power. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this ride is short but sweet. Number 76, Alpina Blitz at Nigloland. This mock coaster is their take on the Intamin Megalite, and it offers all sorts of airtime. The first drop in S-Hills in the middle of the ride bring the ejector airtime. The larger hills in the first lap have some nice floater airtime, and the final bunny hills have good flagector airtime. Add in the super comfortable mock trains and a grayout inducing turn after the first drop, and you have a winner. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this layout shows that good things can come in small sizes. Number 75, Pyrenees at Parque España. This B&M invert is a giant one, and it feels like a supersized Batman the ride. Both loops have some real power to them, the 0G roll is delightfully wild, and the Cobra roll violently snaps you about, and the final corkscrew is quite snappy. Then you also have that crazy powerful helix through the loop. Pyrenees is also pretty smooth, which makes it one of the better B&M inverts. Number 74, Katoon at Mirabilandia. Katoon does have the same things Pyrenees does well. Both coasters are large in scale and have 6 forceful inversions, but I give Katoon the edge for 2 reasons. 1, the first drop is superior. Katoon straightens out early, so you get some weak floater airtime in the back. 2, this ride is smoother start to finish, while Pyrenees has a little headbanging in the Cobra roll. Number 73, Rorosaurus at Storyland. This coaster may be just 40 feet or 12 meters tall, but it has a dozen airtime moments, and they're strong airtime moments too. This junior Gravity Group wood coaster has more power than the other ones of the similar size. The finale in particular feels like the one in Steel Vengeance, as the 4 consecutive bunny hills aggressively fling you from your seat. I cannot believe a ride like this was built at a children's park, but as you see in my review, I am certainly not complaining. Number 72, Ruth Schabanen at Tivoli Gardens. This classic scenic railway coaster is super historic, and I love the mountain facade too. But you know what I love even more? Getting airtime like this coaster gives with barely any restraint. You have just a loose lap bar and no seat belts, so you really pop out of your seat on the drops in a sense, especially if you have an ambitious brakeman or brakewoman running the ride. Number 71, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida. This Maurer coaster gets a lot of flack, but I genuinely love it. The ride does have a shimmy to it, but I can tolerate it. The ride has a bazillion brake runs, but I don't mind because the sharp ascents and descents deliver good pops of airtime. This coaster also has a solid first drop, some wonderful sustained floater airtime in the non-inverting loop, and 2 forceful helixes. Add in some of the best onboard audio of any coaster, and I always come off this ride with a giant smile on my face. I go into more detail in a separate review, but I really like this coaster. Number 70, Mindbender at Galaxyland. This indoor Schwarzkopf coaster looks monstrous. The ride has some super steep and devilishly twisted drops at the start that offer some great laterals. And then the 3 inversions are some of the most forceful of any coaster. All 3 are true grayout moments. The ride also has a surprise pop of airtime or 2, and a super disorienting final helix around a series of mirrors. If you're a fan of positive G's, this ride needs to be on your bucket list, and I talk about it more in a separate review. Number 69, Chimera at La Feria de Chapultepec. I never thought this coaster would run again, but Indiana Beach is rebuilding it for the 2022 season. This coaster is a smaller version of Mindbender, but it's even more powerful. La Feria ran this coaster without any brakes, so the final turns and helixes offered some very abrupt airtime pops, laterals, and positive Gs, in addition to the strong start like Mindbender. This ride comes close to pulling 6 Gs. Number 68, Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. This Gravity Group creation has a super unique setting on a ravine and over a highway. The first half is one of the best of any coaster. The first drop is incredible with the sustained airtime, and then the bunny hills have a nice mix of floater airtime and speed. The second half does suffer from a lack of speed as you go back up the hill, but you can still get some weak pops of airtime up front. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is the reason to visit Waldameer. Number 67, Boardwalk Bullet at Kemah Boardwalk. Yet another Gravity Group creation, Boardwalk Bullet has an impressively twisted layout. The first half is incredible. You have some wonderful drops loaded with airtime in the back car, plus a series of smaller hills that abruptly pop you out of your seat. The airtime does decrease in strength as the ride progresses, going to floater and weak pops, but the unpredictable layout is a pure joy, and I have a separate review going into more detail. Number 66, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is my favorite GCI that I have ridden. Mystic Timbers has a fantastic setting in the woods, and the pacing is top notch. Mystic Timbers never slows down, and it's just one airtime hill after another. While none of the hills offer elite airtime, each one will quickly pop you out of your seat. And even though this is an out and back coaster, it mixes enough twists and turns to keep riders on their toes. I have a separate review, but this is the wood coaster I want to ride at night at Kings Island. Number 64, Colossus at Heidi Park. This was the original Intamin prefabricated wood coaster, and it has a lot of similarities to El Toro. The first drop isn't as steep, but it does give good ejector airtime still. The first two camelbacks offer incredible sustained ejector airtime, much like the ones in El Toro. Then the turnaround and middle section is similar to El Toro, offering some weak floater airtime at best. Colossus then differs, treating riders to a dreadfully boring helix midway through the ride that absolutely kills the pacing. The final bunny hills are a return to form as you get decent floater airtime, and you also have that giant stunning near miss with the flame monster. And since this coaster was recently retracked, it is glass smooth. Number 64, Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This Intamin accelerator coaster has the usually awesome hydraulic launch. It causes my stomach to drop from the power. And then you also have the top hat loaded with ejector airtime. But Storm Runner then treats its riders to a full layout. I love how this coaster winds its way through Pioneer Frontier. The valleys on this coaster have strong positive Gs, then the ride also mixes in some airtime pops, and the final two inversions are spectacular. The barrel roll has copious amounts of hang time, and the flying snake dive is super disorienting, while also delivering violent laterals. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is America's best accelerator coaster. Number 63, Junker at Powerland. This Gerstlauer Infinity coaster does a lot of things well. The initial LSM launch is very powerful, and it slams you against your seat back. Then every single element offers good laterals with either airtime or hang time simultaneously. The top hat has the good ejector airtime, and the three inversions offer good hang time. This is one of the most underrated launch coasters in the world, and I talk about more in a separate review. Number 62, Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. I need to add a disclaimer that I've never ridden this coaster at its full power. It was running slow wheels in 2018 from the VR conversion, and then in 2019, it was only running a 5-car train. The ride didn't have as much airtime as the newer RMCs, but the pacing was still very strong. Medusa hauls through its layout. The airtime it has is still pretty good though, but you are also forcefully pushed through the turns and also get some great hang time on the three inversions. Number 61, Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Considered by many to be the worst RMC, that's not really a fair moniker for this single rail coaster. In the back rows, Jersey Devil is very good. The first drop is one of the best on any coaster, as it aggressively launches you from your seat. Then the three inversions are great. The dive loop has some floater airtime and strong laterals, while the 0G roll and stall have some incredible hang time. Then there are a half dozen other airtime moments, especially now that the mid-course brake run doesn't slow you down. I talk about it more in a separate review, but this is a layout I don't mind seeing cloned. Number 60, Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. This Chance Hyper GTX feels like an RMC with its powerful ejector airtime and pacing. Lightning Run charges through its layout, never missing a moment to catapult riders from their seats. And that's best encapsulated by the finale, that has some of the strongest ejector pops of any coaster. It's comical how forceful those negative Gs are when you watch off-ride. The one thing holding this coaster back for me is that it just doesn't have the same sense of speed as an RMC, even though the elements are strong. Number 59, Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is a short but strong RMC. The 3 inversions all offer great hang time, and then every drop delivers the ejector airtime the company is known for. Then you have a signature moment in that demented wave turn that laterally ejects riders. It's RMC's best wave turn to date. Number 58, Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. Wicked Cyclone is what happens when you add a third lap to Twisted Cyclone. This coaster does lose a lot of speed in the final lap, but the ride still gets you out of your seat with a super slow 0G roll and some small bunny hills. The first half is fast and furious though. The drop is the usual RMC goodness, the overbank is a gray out moment, and the first 2 inversions have nice hang time. Then you have plenty of ejector airtime, most notably on that insane outward bank. Number 57, Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land. The world's longest roller coaster is a ton of fun. The long series of bunny hills in the return run offer great floater airtime for everyone, but you need to be in the back car to get the full effect of the first half. Unfortunately, you cannot select your row, but if you luck into the back, the massive drops deliver several seconds of sustained floater airtime. The coaster also can have a bit of a shuffle in the middle, but this is one ride where you will not be complaining about length. Number 56, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. The original B&M Giga Coaster is on the shorter side, but I like what it offers. B&M Gigas have some of the best drops in the world with the several seconds of sustained airtime, and Leviathan's is no different. Then Leviathan also has some strong camelbacks, delivering strong and sustained floater airtime, and there's also an awesome speed hill combining laterals and airtime. Leviathan feels more like a supersized B&M Hyper than the company's later Gigas, but that still makes it a very good ride. Number 55, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is one of the strongest B&M Hypers. Goliath is a neat layout that runs outside the park, and it's also more forceful than usual. This one offers a sustained floater airtime start to finish, and has much better pacing than usual because there's no mid-course brake run, and the trims do not hit. And then you also have incredible, gray-out inducing positive Gs on that downward helix turnaround. It's one of the best turnarounds B&M has ever devised. The first 3 valleys do have a noticeable rattle to them, but Goliath is otherwise perfect. Number 54, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Ever since GCI retracted this coaster in full, it has been running like a dream. The coaster is extremely fast and very smooth. The pacing is one of the coaster's strengths. You charge through that layout. The large drops in the first half have good airtime, particularly the drop that kicks off the second half. Then the second half flies through the wood structure, combining strong laterals with nice airtime pops. I go into more detail in a separate review, but Ghost Rider feels out of control in the best way possible. Number 53, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. The prototype Mach Extreme Spinning Coaster has a cool setting on a hillside. The first drop is one of the best in the world if you're in that back car. Anytime you can get sideways or backwards ejector airtime, sign me up. The rest of the ride is a blur of disorienting inversions and airtime pops. There are a few elements that feel a bit like filler, but Time Traveler's best bits are truly special, and I talk about it more in a separate review. Number 52, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. This coaster is just pure fun. I love the raised riding position of the motorbike seats, as it accentuates all the dips and turns of this coaster. You then have a whopping 7 launches. Most have a good kick to them, and the final one is very powerful. The coaster is super long, giving some weak airtime pops and forceful turns along the way. Plus some surprises I do not want to spoil. And the theming also elevates this coaster. I have a separate review going into more detail, and while it pains me to say this, Hagrid's is indeed superior to Dueling Dragons. Number 51, Nemesis at Alton Towers. This legendary B&M invert has a super unique setting and layout. Nemesis is built underground in a series of trenches, so the coaster builds speed as it goes. All 4 inversions are very snappy, and I particularly love the sequence when you fling around an aggressive corkscrew, transition into a gray out inducing tight downwards helix, and then whip through a 0G roll. Nemesis is short, but this coaster packs a mighty punch while also creating some awesome visuals. I have a separate review, but you won't ride another coaster quite like this anywhere else. Number 50 is Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa. This is America's best B&M invert, and it may be the most forceful B&M invert in the world. All 7 inversions are extremely snappy, and many pull intense positive Gs, with the highlight being that powerful batwing. It's one of the strongest inversions on any coaster. Montu also has some cool trenches peppered throughout, and the ride is still glass smooth even after 2.5 decades of operation. Number 49, Osiris at Park Asterix. My favorite B&M invert in the world has a much different layout than usual. This one has better Egyptian theming than Montu, and it's a more well-rounded ride. The steep twisting first drop has shocking ejector airtime and laterals, and then the ride has 5 other airtime moments as well. No other invert delivers airtime like this. Then you also have some great inversions. The dive loop and vertical loop bring the force, and the other 3 inversions are floaty. Number 48, El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. The lone Intamin prefabricated wood coaster in America has one of the best starts on any coaster. The first drop delivers crazy ejector airtime in the back, and then the following 2 camelbacks have some of the best sustained ejector in any coaster, no matter where you're sitting. I find the middle section has a lull with a shaky turnaround and some mild floater airtime, but then the powerful Rolling Thunderhill tries to launch you into orbit. The finale has some fast turns and a few weak hills into the brake run. Now El Toro's 4 best hills are as good as any coaster, but the ride just isn't as balanced start to finish as the coasters ahead of it on this list. Number 47, Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This RMC hybrid gets a lot of flack, but I think it has some great power in the back car. The twisting first drop is incredible, blending ejector airtime and strong laterals. Then all 3 inversions offer great hang time, particularly the amazing 0G stall. The turnarounds on Joker are just okay, but every single drop in Bunny Hill seems to offer a little bit of better ejector airtime than other RMCs of comparable size. Number 46, Superman El Ultimo Escape at Six Flags Mexico. This Morgan Hypercoaster is a really unique ride. The pre-lift occurs on a hillside and gives some sweet pops of airtime. Then the main layout is way more forceful than the other ground-up Morgan Hypers. The first drop has the usual sustained floater airtime, but the helix section offers strong laterals with some good airtime. Then the finale, if the mid-course doesn't hit, has some great sustained floater airtime. And all this airtime occurs with the minimalistic Morgan lap bars. Number 45, iSpeed at Mirabilandia. This Intamin LSM launch coaster is like the greatest hits of their US coasters. The initial launch has solid power like the one on Maverick. The top hat delivers some powerful ejector airtime like the one on Accelerator. The Camelback has sustained ejector airtime like their hypercoasters. The rapid S transition is reminiscent of Intimidator 305's twists. The S hill is like the one on Ride of Steel. And then the barrel rolls have the whip and forceful hang time of Velocicoaster's final inversion. You do have to watch your neck on the snappy transitions and hard restraints, and the final section does lose some steam, but the first 3/4 of this ride are exceptional. Number 44, Maverick at Cedar Point. This Intamin creation is an aggressive jack of all trades. The beyond vertical drop delivers powerful ejector airtime, the low turns are gray out inducing and snappy, the airtime hills try to launch you into Lake Erie, and then the surprise launch has good power and speed. Plus, the 2 Stengel dives are some of the whippiest elements at any coaster, as they violently contort the train. When 2 decent inversions are the weakest point of a ride, you know you have a special coaster. Number 43, Cyclone at Luna Park. This may be the most famous wooden roller coaster in the world, and thanks to Zamperla's investment in track work, it's running better than ever. The ride offers some of the most intense laterals of any coaster. The lack of seat dividers allow the coaster to violently throw you about and pin you to the side of the train. And the ride also has some spectacular airtime, particularly if you're in the back car. You have just a single position lap bar and no seat belts, so you really come flying out of your seat. Number 42, Formula Rossa at Ferrari World. This is the best intimate accelerator coaster. The hydraulic launch is one of the best on any coaster. It's pulsed and has two distinct kicks. Both are powerful and will get your cheeks flapping. Then you also have a full layout. The rest of the ride reminds me of Millennium Force with a sustained speed and floater airtime hills. Number 41, Swamp Fox at Family Kingdom. I heard this wood coaster wasn't running well in 2021, but it was fantastic for my June 2020 rides. Those buzz bars allow for some amazing airtime. Most hills deliver abrupt ejector airtime, which is frightening with those restraints. The coaster was smooth if you avoided a wheel seat, and also had some sweet laterals on the final turn. Number 40, Balder at Liseberg. This intimate prefabricated wood coaster is all about ejector airtime. The first drop is a dud, especially compared to the other prefabs, but the rest of the ride is packed with sustained ejector airtime. The ride is formulaic and the turnarounds do nothing, but a dozen ejector airtime moments is something I can get on board with. Number 39, Lek Coaster at Legendia. This may be the king of positive Gs. This coaster induced several extended grayouts. My head was spinning every time I came off this coaster. But you also have plenty of airtime too. The beyond vertical, twisting drop is a delightful combo of ejector airtime and laterals. Then you have several other camelbacks and pops of airtime peppered about, plus 3 spectacular inversions, with the highlight being that corkscrew over the station. Number 38, Silver Star at Europa Park. This B&M Hypercoaster ran much better in 2021 than 2017. The ride was smoother and the trims did not hit. This made the sustained floater airtime in the first half incredible. Then the second half is one of the best of any B&M Hyper. You get 2 flagector pops off the mid-course and exiting the helix. You then have another great bunny hill, plus you also have a snappy S-bend finale and a solid helix. Number 37, Candymonium at Hershey Park. This is the best paced B&M Hypercoaster in America. This one holds its speed better, doesn't have a mid-course brake run, and has great elements. Candymonium's first half has very strong and sustained floater airtime. Then the second half has a fun outward bank, a signature helix around the fountain, and some additional airtime pops. Number 36, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Mako's first half is incredible, one of the best of any coaster. This ride is some of the best sustained flagector airtime you can get anywhere in the world. The second half does let its foot off the gas a bit, but it's still solid. The final bunny hill gives some floater airtime, just not like the first half. And then the swooping turns offer some laterals and great visuals. Number 35, Orion at Kings Island. The newest B&M Giga Coaster is pure fun. The coaster has amazing speed in the valleys and in that final helix. Then the elements are fun too. I love the sustained airtime on the first drop. The giant wave turn offers weak sustained airtime while turned on your side. And then the second half has a few other moments of sustained airtime. Number 34, Intimidator 305 at Kings Dominion. This coaster has a case as the most intense coaster in the world. You have an amazing first drop loaded with airtime, and then I-305 tries to kill you. The turn after the drop is a guaranteed grayout, and then this coaster's crazy transitions. Every change of direction viciously snaps your body to the side. It's so forceful that you get pops of airtime from these transitions. While I cannot deny this coaster's speed and intensity, I just have more fun the coasters ahead of it. Number 33, the original RMC Raptors. I've ridden both Wonder Woman and Railblazer, and both are some of the craziest and fastest paced coasters in the world. You rip through the layout. The rides are short, but spectacular. The first drop is one of the best on any ride with a forceful ejector airtime. And you also get comparable airtime on the S-Hill, the mid-drop, and even the dive loop, while also getting wild laterals. The second half isn't quite as intense, but you still have a floaty 0G roll and a forceful final turn. Number 32, Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. After running a bit slower than usual in 2020, Storm Chaser ran like a bat out of hell in 2021. This coaster is an ejector airtime machine, and it tries to destroy your thighs. The airtime is more sustained in the first half, and then super abrupt in the second half, particularly in the Trick Track Double Up. You also have two nice inversions. The barrel roll drop has nice hang time, and the 0G roll is surprisingly snappy for an RMC inversion. Number 31, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This is another RMC all about ejector airtime. Outside of the barrel roll drop and 0G roll, which both give great hang time I might add, and most of the turnarounds, every single element gives great ejector airtime. I love the sustained airtime of the three camelbacks and the outward bank turn best, but this ride has plenty of other abrupt moments too. Number 30, Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan. This is the world's most intense flying coaster. The Fly-to-Line pretzel loop delivers some of the strongest and most sustained positive Gs of any coaster, and the fact you experience those elements back to back is unreal. Then the rest of the ride has incredible visuals, some floaty inversions, and even some airtime pops, which feels super weird in the flying position. Number 29, X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This coaster is crazy. The seats strategically flip throughout the ride to augment the massive elements. The near vertical drop with the flip is the ride's signature moment. But you also get some freaky airtime on the Raven turn at the start and the camelback with the flipping seats. The far turnaround may be a dud, but the 0G roll that follows is super disorienting with the rotating seats. The final Raven turn has crushing positive Gs, and the final inline twist into the brake run violently throws your body about. The ride is not smooth, it definitely has a bounce to it, but I'll take that to experience this ride's intensity. Number 28, Egenica at Fuji-Q Highland. This is a bigger and wilder X2. The ride takes the best elements from X2 and makes them larger. And it also fixes the ride's dead spot by making that disorienting half-half turnaround. Egenica is rougher though, so it's a trade-off for the added intensity. Number 27, Hyperion at Energylandia. This intimate hypercoaster feels like a newer version of Six Flags New England's Superman. The first half has the elements of an out and back, while the second half has the elements of a twister. The first drop and first camelback have some incredible sustained ejector airtime. The far turnaround is a cool dive loop, blending airtime and laterals. Then the rest of the ride has smaller elements, combining abrupt laterals and airtime pops. Number 26, Taiga at Linnanmaki. This intimate LSM launch coaster does a little bit of everything. It feels sort of like Velocicoaster mixed with Liseberg's Helix. You have the varied ride experience of Velocicoaster, including 2 solid launches, great airtime, and 4 amazing inversions. I particularly love the sustained hang time on the 0G winder and the supersized stall. Then this coaster is the special location of Helix, being built on a hillside with stunning views of Helsinki. Those visuals combined with the strong elements and near flawless pacing make this coaster the best one in Finland. Number 25, Helix at Liseberg. Speaking of Helix, this is one of the best coasters in the world with a primary focus on inversions. Every single inversion feels pretty floaty and offers nice hang time. Then you also have some great airtime too. The 2 giant camelbacks deliver some of the best sustained ejector airtime of any coaster, and you also have some smaller pops too. But what makes Helix really special is its setting atop the wooded hill. You have amazing near misses with attractions and stunning views of Gothenburg. Number 24, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. The original Giga Coaster is a speed demon. This ranking assumes I'm up front, and this ride is special up there. Millennium Force is more than just a sum of its elements. The way this coaster sustains its speed start to finish is matched by very few coasters. The first drop is one of the best on any coaster, and I get one of the most sustained grayouts on any ride through the first drop's pullout, through the overbank, and tunnel. Then the other 3 hills give some nice floater airtime for variety, but the speed and visuals are what define this coaster. Number 23, Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. This intimate hypercoaster grew on me in 2021. The new wheels added in 2019 have this coaster running faster than ever, and this gave me a new favorite seat in the back. The first half is incredible ejector airtime no matter where you're sitting. but the pops in the second half are considerably stronger in that back car. Along with that airtime, you have some great positive Gs, and I just love this coaster's layout. The first half is an out and back along the river. Then the second half is a twister around rides and pathways. And unlike most people, the restraints do not bother me because they allow for plenty of room to experience airtime. Number 22, Shambhala at Port Aventura. This is the best B&M Hyper. The sustained floater airtime feels stronger than the other B&M Hypers, and the pacing is great. The first brake run doesn't occur until the end, so you hold your speed better on this one. And you have amazing visuals too between the ride's location and the fake splashdown. Number 21, Wildfire at Kolmarden Zoo. I still cannot believe this large RMC exists at a zoo. The first half has some supersized elements, such as that amazing first drop, the hang time filled stall, and sideways airtime hill. The second half is filled with plenty of other airtime pops, and some 0G rolls as you maneuver around a hill. Number 20, Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. New England's best roller coaster is defined by its setting. The coaster carves its way through a heavily wooded mountainside. This creates some astounding visuals and near misses by day, and one of the best night rides in the world. And the coaster has amazing pacing. The sense of speed is top notch, and you have plenty of airtime. You have 2 ejector pops on the outward leg, but most hills give floater airtime. And then you also get some great laterals despite the ride having an out and back layout. The ride can get bumpy if you ride further back in the train, but my advice is to ride the coaster up front where the airtime is the best anyway. Number 19, Skyrush at Hershey Park. What an aggressive ride. Skyrush tries to kill you in many different ways, and I love its power. You have violent ejector airtime in the first drop and camelbacks. Then you also have wild laterals on the Stengel dives and turns. The restraints are definitely tight, but Skyrush's intensity and raw strength make it special. Number 18, Fury 325 at Carowinds. B&M's masterpiece is the world's best Giga Coaster. Fury has amazing sustained airtime on the first drop, the treble clef turnaround, and the final bunny hills. But it also has some amazing twists in the first half that are super aggressive, giving airtime pops and laterals. Fury 325 is the perfect mix of speed, intensity, and rideability. Number 17, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. This RMC hybrid coaster has an amazing setting on a quarry. The first drop is my favorite on any coaster, with the sustained ejector airtime, laterals, and visuals all together. Then you also have plenty of other great airtime moments, with the final drop off the quarry being another highlight. This coaster does get a lot of flack for how it loses speed atop the quarry wall, and while this section is undeniably slow, it doesn't bother me because you're still coming out of your seat on the bunny hills and twists. Oh, and you also have one of my favorite inversions in that 0G roll. Number 16, Expedition G-Force at Holiday Park. This is one of the best coasters in the world for sustained ejector airtime. Every single camelback and bunny hill catapults you out of your seat for a few seconds. And then you also have that wild first drop with powerful ejector airtime and violent laterals. It's one of the best drops anywhere. The middle section is just okay with those overbanks and S-Hill, but the ride's start and finish is elite, as is the wooded setting. Number 15, Schwertis-Karnen at Hansa Park. This ride is the complete package. You have some great theming in the queue line, and then you have some awesome indoor elements I'm not going to spoil here. And then you have a thrilling outdoor layout. The first drop is one of the best on any coaster, and it reminds me of a supersized version of Expedition G-Forces with the airtime and twist. Then you have some Skyrush-like elements between the strong airtime and vicious laterals. One or two of the outdoor elements aren't standouts, but everything else with this ride is. Number 14, Phoenix at Knoebels. This ride is special for the restraints. The lack of seatbelts and just buzz bars allow every single hill to fling you a foot out of your seat. It's an amazing feeling slamming into that lap bar. And Phoenix only gets stronger as it progresses, with that finale abruptly popping you out of your seat 4 consecutive times. I always come off this coaster laughing. Number 13, Coaster at Peony Playland. This is Phoenix on steroids. You have similar restraints, but the airtime is even more aggressive. I had to hold on for dear life. And then you also have much stronger laterals. With no seat dividers and minimal banking, you are thrown side to side along with all that airtime. Number 12. Zadra at Energylandia. Currently the world's tallest hybrid coaster, Zadra is all about speed and power. The first drop offers incredible ejector airtime, and then you haul through the layout. Every other hill delivers good ejector airtime, with the far turnaround being one of the highlights. And many of the hills also include laterals simultaneously, including that insane S-hill at the end. You also have 3 lovely inversions, with the best one being that massive stall. You get glorious hang time, plus snaps into and out of the element. Number 11. Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This RMC creation may not dual super often, but the layout is strong enough to be elite on its own. Each half is fantastic. I love how you get to experience that awesome first drop twice. I prefer the blue side for the superior airtime and lateral heavy 0G roll, but the green side also has plenty of airtime and that incredible stall. While the lift hill in the middle does break up the pacing, few rides give you as much bang for your buck as Twisted Colossus. Number 10. Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This Intamin creation is an amazing blend of theming and thrills. The Q-Line and coaster tell a story. The first half has amazing near misses as you weave through the raptor paddock. Then the second half is more about extreme elements as you head over the water. This ride does everything well. The launches are solid, the ride has plenty of airtime with the sustained airtime of the top hat being the highlight, and then the 4 inversions are great. The 2 in the first half launch you out of your seat while also offering laterals. The stall offers wild hang time, and then the Mosasaurus roll is as good as everyone says with the insane laterals and ejection forces. Number 9. Fly at Phantasialand. I loved this Vekoma flying coaster far more than expected. The way the coaster is integrated with Rookburg is special. The visuals of flying past buildings, under structures, and over pathways is magical. No other flying coaster mimics the feeling of flight quite like this ride. And then the ride's elements were much better than expected. The valleys and turns delivered powerful positive Gs towards the back. This is one of the best coasters for positive forces. Then there are several airtime pops scattered about, which is a really freaky feeling when you're in that prone flying position. You then have 2 fun launches and 2 solid inversions for variety. This is a super long ride that just had me smiling ear to ear start to finish. Number 8. Shivering Timbers and Michigan's Adventure. This CCI wood coaster is arguably the best coaster in the world for floater airtime. This ride is nearly 1 mile of track, and every single hill delivers good to great floater airtime. I could not believe how long I spent out of my seat. Then the ride also mixes in some great laterals on the turnaround and final helix for variety. And this ride is still very smooth despite its size and length. Number 7. Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. This is one of the most bizarre hypercoasters in the world, but I love it. This coaster is a fast-paced blur with a special setting on that ravine. And it also helps that you have those trains. You have a super freeing lap bar that gives you a shocking amount of room for a coaster of this scale. The first half has some incredible positive Gs in the first drop, the second drop's pullout, and the giant overbank. Then you also have some incredible airtime. The famous second drop down the ravine gives good airtime plus a free-falling sensation due to its length. Then the final hills offer some insane ejector airtime. You barely return to your seat in between pops. Number 6. Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. The original RMC wood coaster may be short, but this ride excels in every other area. The first drop offers a breathtaking view and powerful airtime, then Outlaw Run charges through the woods at breakneck speeds. It's one of the best settings for any coaster. The pacing in this ride is unreal. The only time you slow down is the final barrel roll, when it's advantageous to do so for hang time. The rest of the ride is a flurry of ejector airtime and speed, and it's augmented by all those trees nearby. Number 5. Untamed at Wallaby Holland. This coaster feels like a miniature Steel Vengeance. it has a similarly world-class pacing and powerful ejector airtime. You barely have time to return to your seat in between elements, because Untamed repeatedly launches you from your seat. And then you also have 5 awesome inversions. The double stall at the start is my favorite, with that super sustained hang time, but the others also get you out of your seat. Number 4, Ride to Happiness at Plopsalandia. This mock extreme spinning coaster unlocked the full potential of the model. This one spins faster than Time Traveler and has a much wilder layout. The launches themselves may not be super forceful, but the centripetal force from the spinning sure is. Then you have an exciting mix of ejector airtime and inversions. The broken up top hat delivers insane ejector airtime going up and down, and the final few hills also launch you from your seat. Then the 5 inversions are exceptional. They're some of the best of any coaster. The JoJo Roll and Flying Snake Dive have some of the best sustained hang time on any coaster, especially because you're often spinning throughout them. Then the other ones are extremely disorienting. Add in top-notch onboard audio, and you have a ride that's unlike any other currently operating. Number 3, Voyage at Holiday World. This is now the best wood coaster in the world. Voyage has 3 distinct sections, each with their own flavor. The first half feels like a hypercoaster, with the giant camelbacks loaded with floater airtime. The turnaround section is a frenetic blitz of laterals and quick pops of airtime. Then the return run feels like an out-and-back wood coaster on steroids, between the sudden airtime pops and sharp banking. Holiday World takes amazingly good care of this coaster to keep it running smoothly, and this rides an endurance test in the best way possible. It's fast-paced, super long, and engaging start to finish. Plus that wooded setting creates amazing visuals by day and legendary night rides. Number 2, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This massive RMC coaster is advertised to have the most airtime of any coaster in the world, and I believe it. Steel Vengeance has nearly 24 airtime hills. The larger elements in the first half have more sustained airtime, particularly on the top hat and outward banked hill. These are 2 of the best hills in the world for sustained ejector airtime. The second half has more aggressive pops of ejector airtime. You also have 4 wild inversions that'll get you out of your seat, lots of near misses, and insane pacing. Steel Vengeance has nearly 82 seconds of prime ride time, and it's stuffed with high quality elements start to finish. And coming in at number 1 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. This RMC creation may have been converted partially to a steel coaster, and it lost a lot of trees around the ride, but it's still my favorite coaster. Lightning Rod has everything I could want in a ride. A breathtaking setting on the mountain, incredible sense of speed, flawless pacing, and explosive airtime. And I love how this coaster only gets stronger as it goes. It starts with an underrated uphill launch and a very solid and large first drop. Then you have sideways airtime on the giant wave turn and that far turnaround. The rest of the ride maintains the blistering speed and has crazy ejector airtime, most notably on the quad down. That really is one of the best elements in the world. And night rides on this coaster are particularly special because there's no light on the other side of the hill. Those are the best roller coasters I have ever ridden in my world travels. Let me know what you think about this list or any of the coasters I mentioned down below. If you enjoyed this countdown, I'd appreciate if you gave this video a like and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.